So that's to go back. Or not. Yeah, the third one. Sorry, I need, and this is the reason why you you need signs. All right, so we have the Derek Spear design panels for the Fanatec DD1, and oh boy, they are gorgeous. And I've bought these quite a long time ago. I don't know, half a year, less than half a year ago, anyways. But the reason why I bought them was because of the style. I've seen a few of them in other sim racers rigs, and I found them gorgeous. So first, let's talk about the build quality. They are made of 3D printed plastic. It's quite a resistant, durable plastic, to be honest. They have a very shiny mirror-like almost finish on the front, and the actual button boxes here have a carbon fiber look to it. It's not real carbon fiber, it's still plastic, and it still has kind of like that mirror finish, but the design under the pattern under looks carbon fiber, which is super neat. There's a lot of chrome going on with the switches, toggles, even under the rotary buttons here. I would say the only complaint that I have with the build quality is the flex in them. And I don't think it's because of the plastic, because I mentioned the plastic is quite hard. I think it's because of how they're built to be assembled, which is they get attached to the Fanatec wheelbase through two bolts here. And being quite a lengthy panel, it has a bit of flex. But yeah, they're pretty nicely built. I really like the design. The other thing, it has these covered switches, which are made of this red semi-transparent plastic, and they have a really nice feel to them. Same with these switches. They have a very solid click to them, which is quite nice. It feels industrial, it feels robust. I would say the buttons as well, a nice click to them. Can definitely be a bit of a better click, but I think it's good enough. The one thing that I would say that I'm not really enjoying that much in terms of a feel is these rotaries. I feel that they're a bit too flimsy in turn. I wish they were a bit more clicky like the rest of the switches, because they're a bit it's very easy for you to miss a step. So if you have like a brake bias or something like that, it's very easy to accidentally switch twice. So I would say that's the only complaint that I would have about the inputs is this the rotary encoders are a bit too easy to switch. The last but not least, this big red launch button, which I really enjoy. It has a chrome ring around it, and the button itself is red. Looks really nice. It really looks like a ignition start button, and it has a nice feel to it, to the click. It also lightens up when you plug it in, which is quite nice to have at least one element on these dashes that have light coming through. And that, in terms of the build, if we look on the back, there is, there's the plastic cover. I don't think you care that much about how the back material looks like. You do have the USB connector here. It's a USB, I think it's a USB-A, that's what they're called. So it comes out a USB-A and goes to a normal USB. Now, one thing to mention, And I don't know if this is just with me or that's how they come, but mine did not come with any of the cables, so I had to buy the USB cables myself. And honestly, for a almost $300 a product, I would expect the cables to be in there. I think they're now listed at $295 or something like that. They're shipped from US. So yeah, that's kind of it for the build quality. Again, I really enjoy using them. In terms of the number of functions, and that's another benefit compared to some of the smaller, more compact button boxes, it comes with a ton of inputs. You have 2 switch buttons, as I mentioned, with a cover that you lift off. Now, worth mentioning, these switch buttons, you can only use them upwards. So you can only use upwards. They don't work downwards. I mean, they probably do, I don't know, but it's very hard to use them downwards. So you only use them upwards. Then you have 4 two-way toggles, which go up and down. And again, the click is quite strong, and they're made of this nice chrome. So you can assign up and down functions, basically two functions per each. So you have 4 there. Then moving down to the buttons, you have 4 push buttons where you can assign various functions, and 3 encoders, rotary encoders, or how they're called. I think they're called, yeah, rotary encoders. 3 rotary encoders for which you can assign functions while moving to the right or to the left. So they have two-way function set up as well. And of course the big red launch button, which you can assign only 1 function to it. If we move to the other side, here you have 5 two-way toggles, and then you have 6 buttons that you can assign 1 function per button, and 5 rotary encoders, again, where you can assign functions while you're turning left or while you're turning right as well. So that's quite a lot of functions. I can't even count. Like, I can't tell you exactly how many functions, but a lot. You probably have more than 20. Definitely, probably 30 or 40 or something like that. I didn't count the number of functions that you can assign to it. It's plenty. Worth mentioning, they both have USB inputs, so they both go into your PC. So you will have 2 USB inputs into your PC, and they actually appear as individual inputs, which means that if I know you can only buy them in pair, at least from what I read from their website, but if you only want to use one and you want to give one away, or I don't know, maybe use it in a different rig, you can do that as well, because they don't depend on each other, to put it like that. In terms of the size, so each panel is, let's measure them. I don't think I've ever properly measured them. So each panel is about 32 centimeters long. In inches, that is 12.6 inches. That is from the further edge of each side, yeah. And then in terms of the height of the panel, you have 11.5 centimeters, or in inches, that will be 4.5, I think it is. Yes, 4.5 inches. The thickness, so if you put where the buttons start all the way to the back where this protrusion is for the USB, it's kind of hard to measure it like this, but I would say something like 9 centimeters depth, and that is in inches, around 4 inches. So that's the type of distance that you need available, so you can mount them. The other thing that I would mention about these Again, I said they're quite expensive, so they're not for everyone. I think I'm in UK. I bought them from US. They arrived quite nicely in time and such. The one thing that I would say is that the Derek Spears Designs customer support is a bit on the meh side. I think they can do a better job at facilitating for their customers. I did had a couple of interactions with them, and they didn't really, at least for me, it didn't felt that they really cared about my inquiries. So I don't know, maybe other people have other experiences with them, which I assume maybe, but at least for me, it wasn't the most pleasant interaction when I asked the questions that I had to ask.
A few moments later.
All right, so we're now set up in my rig. I firstly installed the dash, the both sides, both panels, using these bolts that come in the package, and they're attached to the Fanatec through the front screw. So there, Fanatec has some front bolt inputs, I don't know how to call them, and you can take those out and mount these from that come in the pack with the DSD panels. Okay, so as you can see, the bolts come with these washers. I think they're called washers, and you have a double set for each of the bolts. And as you can see, I put one behind where the DD1 is and one in front. Now, this is because the bolts are longer than that comes with. They're longer than the width of the plate. And I think that's because there's a lot of dashboard screens that you can mount on these two bolts here. So I think the reason why they did this and made the bolts longer was so that you can have enough space to mount any dashboards that you might have. So that's pretty cool. So after I bolted the panels into the DD1, I had to go out and buy a couple of USB cables, because as I mentioned before, they don't come with USB cables. Afterwards, I plugged the USB cables, I think it's called USB-A, into the panels and into my PC. And the way they appear is as individual button controllers. And we'll go through the settings a bit in here in my Assetto Corsa Competizione, and how I set them up and what do I use them for. So they're automatically detected once you plug them in the computer. They're automatically detected as input devices, so you don't need to do anything in Windows at all. All you need to do is, after you plug them in, is go into your SIM title of your choice, and then in settings, as for example in Assetto Corsa Competizione, you come in here, and for example, in my ignition and starter here, I have DSD P series controller. So that's for the first one. And I think the second one comes up as something else. Yeah, there you go. And I have here assigned some other interfaces, and it comes up as DSD P series controller 2. So both right and left sides come up in the software where you're gonna set them up as individual panels. And yeah, it really depends also on the SIM title, how you go about setting up, but each individual have their own. But again, the way you set up in here in ACC, you tap on, for example, ignition, and then I just tap on the button that will be ignition. Sometimes I've noticed that you have to tap twice. You have to click or turn or whatever twice in order for it to work. So yeah, so that's one. And now let me quickly introduce you to what kind of functions I set up to this. So what I'm gonna do is exit and go on track for a minute. All right, so we're on track. I'm gonna show you the type of buttons that I have set up, and I'll start with probably the most obvious, which is the ignition and start button. So I set up this covered switch for ignition. So I lift it up. That triggers the ignition. and this is the start. Okay, so that's how it goes. Yeah, then I put this down, and we'll just go quickly on track and explain a bit more of the others. I try to keep on the right the functions of the car. So for example, if you see the screen, the ABS and traction there, when I switch this knob, the traction increases when I switch to the right, so that's what I set it up at. And when I switch to the left, the traction decreases. And the same thing for the ABS. So these are traction control and ABS, these two. And I think this third, I'll set it up as brake bias or something like that. Now this is very beneficial as well when you don't have a wheel like this one that has the rotary encoders, yeah, to set up the traction control, brake bias here, or ABS. You can have those here, and the fact that the panel is so close, yeah, probably when you're in the midst of the race, you want things to be extremely close. But anyways, even if you have them on your wheel, you still have to reach out to take your hand off the wheel and move these encoders. And then again, you know, it's not that difficult to just move here, yeah. And the way you set these up in the controls, you click on, because usually in sim titles you have, for example, traction control up and traction control down. So when you click to set up traction control up, you're just gonna turn this knob a few times upwards and then turn it downwards. So that's what this side is for these knobs here. And then I also have various functions that I've set up on the switches. So for example, this first switch is the basically the wipers. And this, as I go down, it's gonna go faster, and at one point it just stops. So this is slow, and then it gets faster, yeah, and then it stops. The other one, this is my light switch. So this is where I turn my lights on. And then I can't recall, I think I've set one of these as pit limiter and such. So yeah, this side and the buttons, again, I have one, I don't know, I need to remember. There's one that's pit limiter, there's the radio, black box, and such. All of these are related to the car functions. And on this other side, this is where I have usually game related controls. And I have on this farther edge buttons for messages. So if I'm online multiplayer, you know, I have a thank you message, whatever, sorry, whatever messages that I don't need to have to type and such. Now the other set of controls that I have for the interface on this side helps me massively, especially when I wear gloves and let's say the trackpad doesn't work properly, or I have the keyboard pushed away because I'm in a race. If I want to reset or open the menu, all I need to do is tap on this button here and the menu will show up. And then the way I control the menu is through these functions here. So for example, this one is up and down. So again, this is to kind of replace your mouse and your keyboard and such. So I can go up and down from this. And then if I want to, so let me just go into, for example, options. And in order to select, I have to click tap on this other button. So now I'm in menu. So now if I want to go left and right, all I do is control this, left and right, left and right.
That's so cool.
So I can just control everything here and I don't need to go and navigate and pull the keyboard and pull it. Yeah, it's easier to use the keyboard, and I use that before the race. But if I'm in the middle on track and I want to change stuff, then I can control this quickly. Especially if if I'm on multiplayer and I want to exit the track and go back to the garage, I don't want to have to stop somewhere unsafe and try to pull the keyboard and such. I can just click on one button and that's it. Or not. Yeah, the third one. Sorry, I need, and this is the reason why you you need signs, because I need to start putting labels on these, because I forgot that the third button is the go back. So the third button for me is the go back. So now I can go on track, and this is then drive, hit this one, and I'm back on track. Yeah, so that's how I use it. Now, a couple of things. These panels on this DD1 are the perfect width, and they snuggle quite nicely in my setup because they're actually the same width as my center screen, it seems like. So it fits quite nice with this, so it doesn't go under the two screens on the sides, or it's not too small and there's spaces in between. So it seems to be a perfect fit for 32-inch screens. And the other thing is, with my 32-inch screens, I have a bit of a gap here, and they're very curved. So the front screen is very curved. So the gap goes from smaller here to bigger. So I have another video where I constructed these panels here to cover, but just looking how everything fits together, it you know, it's quite nice. It works well. It looks good as well. Now, there is an issue with the flex, as I mentioned, in terms of construction. So as an example, so let me show you on this side. You see that? And that is because of this plastic. Because it's attached all the way here and the width is quite big, it has a bit of flex. So just bearing that in mind, and the more you go to the left or to the right, the more the flex. Yeah, so they're flexing quite a bit. Then, as I mentioned, the buttons are quite stiffy as well. So you need to make sure that you planted this properly. And you also, that you have a base, a proper base that doesn't move, so that when you switch these switchers, nothing flies off. All right, so that's kind of plain and simple. But who is this for? Is this for you? Well, I would say if you don't need all of the functions that this can offer you, and you only need something small with a few toggles so that you can start the engine and do this and that, and you have wheels that have a lot of buttons on them, and you only buy them for their function, for the ability to set various buttons, various functions, then I would say probably not for you there, because they're quite expensive, like almost $300. That's a lot of money. Why did I buy these? Well, number one, it helped cover the space between on the sides of the wheel and kind of complete the look by having a proper dashboard, a racing car dashboard, and it gave me that feeling of the racing car dashboard. Also, they look brilliant, and I think it's a pleasure to just sit down in my rig and just see the buttons in the dash, and then using them within the game. It's a pleasure for me. I do use quite a lot of buttons. I would rather use, as I shown earlier, I use buttons for various game interface and such. So it was a benefit for me of having all of these buttons. But I think primarily is the design and having this side dashes with buttons that I can control and use within the car that was the primary reasons why I bought these. And I think folks that go in and pay this type of money on these dashboards or panels, button panels, however you want to call them, it is because they want that complete busy look of a race car with multiple buttons, and they make good use of them. There are a lot of other brands. There's a ton of companies and manufacturers of button boxes on eBay, Amazon, and on a lot of other websites that can make super slick smaller button boxes, but also bigger ones, so you can get the same level of buttons on a one single piece button box that you can mount on the side of your rig. And honestly, as nice, as good as these have been for me in the last few months, and I've enjoyed using them, I'm moving more towards that, because for me, I'm trying to emulate a car cockpit, and I am going to probably acquire a side dash, similar like you see in the Porsche GT or other GT cars, and have that side dash that I can control stuff and not have a button dashboard left and right just behind the wheel, because that for me is not realistic, as immersive and realistic in terms of the feel of the cockpit, as you would expect in a real car. So I'm moving away from these, but again, they have their place in the sim world, and I really recommend them if you have the budget and you're looking for something like this. So thank you for watching this. If you have any questions about anything about these, I've used them for a while, so I can answer. Put them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.